Okay, John Wertz here. We're with Attorney General Ken Paxton. It's Monday, April 18th. With me is Larry Rogers, Pat Tibbs, Dennis Tibbs, Bob Bagley, Kenneth Ernst, and DJ Fire. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Glad to be here.
For addressing our questionnaire. It's good to have you back.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
Yeah. And as we just discussed, if you like, take up 5 minutes for your opening, and then we'll start the Q&A around the table.
Sure.
Pat will be kind of a timer there. We try to give about 2 minutes on timing. If you have to go over a little bit, that's fine.
Sure.
Thanks, sir.
Right. Well, as you're well aware, I was here when I was running for Attorney General the first time, and it was a very memorable experience and a good one. The reason I'm running again is I realized that we were in a very challenging time in our country. And there's lots of things that I could go do that are different than this, that would be probably easier and more lucrative. But when I looked at where our country was going and the issues we were facing, I never expected to be in a situation with Joe Biden in office and dismantling our Constitution. And I had a plan of taking on the big tech companies. That's why I ran the second time. That's what we're still in the middle of doing. So basically, I haven't finished that job. We've got 3 lawsuits against Google, actually 4 if I count my Utah case. And then we've got a Facebook lawsuit. We're involved in litigation with Twitter. And the reason I wanted to focus on that is I felt like these big corporations, these big tech companies were taking our freedom, and they were taking the platform away from us and giving us little opportunity to get our message out. And they were doing it using their corporate power. And in our country, you're supposed to have free competition. And so we started looking into that, and we filed lawsuits against all of them, trying to address the fact that they are competing in anti-competitive ways and they're taking away our free speech. So we're in the middle of that fight. It's not over because they have so much money and so much power. That fight's going to take, I wasn't going to finish it, and I was worried that my competitors would not continue that fight, because I'm guessing many of them are being funded by big tech companies. So I want to finish that fight because I think it's important for the future of our country. Second, the Biden administration is clearly ignoring the Constitution, not just ignoring it, but literally abusing it by doing many, many things that are in violation of federal law. And so we have over 30 lawsuits now with the federal government. We've won over 90% of our lawsuits against the Biden administration. We have a huge case coming up on April 16th in Washington, D.C. in front of the U.S. Supreme Court on the Remain in Mexico program, which I do believe we're going to win. And we get a solid footing there. I think we've got a much better chance of stemming the tide of illegal immigration. But the reality is all of these fights that we have over this Keystone Pipeline, whether it is this immigration issue, whether it's the mask mandate on planes, whether it's a vaccine mandate that we won related to OSHA that we had a victory on. The fundamental issue here is, can the President of the United States look at federal law as he's directed to, like he was directed to use an appropriation to build the wall and decide not to do it? Are we going to accept a president who doesn't follow the Constitution? And if we do, we are fundamentally a different country. And I felt like my experience and the fact that we had 27 lawsuits against the Biden administration would play into my ability to win against the Biden administration, because we'd won about 80% of our lawsuits against the Obama administration. We're now better than that against Biden. And I felt like it was such an important time for our state and our country that we have somebody with that type of experience that would actually go fight the fight, not just say they were going to fight the fight. And I felt like my opposition was really not there to fight the fight, just really there to move up to another level of government so that they could move up to another level of government and continue to play on to things that family has done. So I'm here to fight. I wanted to give the voters a choice between somebody who I didn't think would fight, who doesn't have much legal experience and can't do this job, and I think they've already proven that in the position that they were in. So I think I'll cede my last minutes and just say I'm looking forward to the opportunity to serve in Texas, really for fighting for America's Constitution and our freedom.
Thank you. Around this one. Okay. So you mentioned some of the key lawsuits that are going on, and I think in your bio you mentioned one against VW.
I think we need to speak up a little louder.
Regarding the emissions cheating scandal, I think there's $50 million on the final settlement there. And you said there could be up to $190 million for projects designed to mitigate environmental harm done by the car maker. Can you explain that and where do we stand with that?
So that was several years ago, and I think it's based on us presenting evidence of other problems along the coast. And I think if we are able to present that evidence, we have the opportunity to collect more money to take care of any problems related to that issue.
Okay.
One of my major concerns is judges who release perpetrators on little to no bail or their own recognizance or whatever. I know it's been happening in Houston a lot, where just this past week, some guy was picked up for doing something, caught in the act, and then he was already out on bond in 3 other counties. And here he is committing more crimes. And how do we stop that? Can your office
You know, it's
do
really,
things?
I'm going to mention something that may seem unrelated, but we're in many states. Like I was just in South Carolina with the South Carolina AG. He has responsibility for all prosecutions in the state. I have responsibility only for one. That's called voter fraud. And so the DAs, who many of these DAs are funded by George Soros, especially in big counties, make the choice as to whether they want to let people out. And then we also have judges who are elected who do the same thing. The reality is the biggest problem we have, one of the biggest problems we have is the Court of Criminal Appeals, which is a Republican court, struck down a statute that was passed in 1951 by the legislature. And that statute instructed the Attorney General to prosecute voter fraud. Supposedly now, the Court of Criminal Appeals has said that's unconstitutional. Well, it's absolutely ludicrous for them to say that. My concern is, going forward, we're not even going to be able to do the one thing that we were given by the legislature pursuant to the Constitution to go prosecute voter fraud. So if this group and Republicans in this state do not hold the Court of Criminal Appeals accountable for that, it was an 8-1 vote, and I am concerned that probably most of you can't name the Court of Criminal Appeals, which is why they can get away with it. Because, yeah, it's a real problem. This is what the worst decision I've seen in my lifetime in Texas, and we will lose elections going forward if we don't fix that. But as far as judges, the legislature is going to have to pass tighter reforms on what they can get away with, because they have discretion in here.
Can I piggyback onto that one? Because that was going to be my question. How do we do this? How do we get this overturned? Because it was unconstitutional what the Court of Criminal Appeals did.
Yeah, so I'm going to explain to you. I have 4 functions under Article 4, under the Constitution. Represent the state in front of the Texas Supreme Court. I'm supposed to protect citizens from corporate fraud and go after corporations that commit consumer fraud. I'm supposed to issue such opinions as certain legislators or the governor ask for. Fourth, I'm supposed to do such things as are required by law. Well, how do you get things required by law? The legislature passes things required by law, and they direct the Attorney General's office as to what to do. In 1951, presumably because they were worried about local DAs not prosecuting voter fraud, they directed the Attorney General to prosecute voter fraud. It was my idea. I wasn't even alive in 1951. We've been doing it for over 70 years, and we have a Court of Criminal Appeals, which is our highest court on criminal matters. We're a bifurcated system, unlike most states. There's only 2 states, I think, that have it this way. And the problem is, I have asked them to rehear this case. I don't think they're going to, because they don't want to. They voted 8-1 very strongly. They argued that this was unconstitutional. How'd they do that? It's in the Constitution that the legislature can direct. They said because I am an executive that I can't go to court. I mean, I want you to think about that. I can't do a judicial function because I'm in the executive branch. If they're right, the Texas Supreme Court should now come back and tell me I can't represent the state of Texas in the 38,000 cases I'm doing that right now, because that's a judicial function. So the Court of Criminal Appeals, that's the most insane argument I've ever seen. And that's what they justified, taking away our ability to prosecute voter fraud. And you have to ask your question, why did they do that? Why did they wait till 2 days after the filing deadline to put that in place right before we have a November election? And that's only a question that we can speculate on, but how did these people that we barely know get there? And what are they doing? And why are they going to allow voter fraud? Let the DAs, who are put there by, many of them put there by Soros, make the decision about this. And they won't prosecute.
So, a little bit different subject. So you may or may not be aware, I believe three folks were indicted in Harris County that work for the county judge in Harris County for steering a contract to a certain vendor. If you were to correlate, and there's the follow-on, I may have a follow-on question. If you look at the donors in, I can only speak for Montgomery County. If you look at the donors in this county, where the money goes and where the contracts go, a lot of money goes to our commissioners, and you can correlate that to the donations. Now, maybe that's a DA function. I'd like to have your thoughts on that. First, what do you think about that? And then, is that really a DA, or can the AG get involved in that?
Truly, DA, I can do nothing about it. In many states, there would be some backup to what the DAs did. It's unfortunate because what that means is every county DA, Democrat, Soros funded, they decide that no crime is going to be prosecuted, or maybe they just decide to prosecute Republicans. Nothing can be done. If the DA decides that their friends can commit crimes in Texas, that's permissible pursuant to the legislature. If the DA decides to participate in that crime, as long as it's just a state crime, not a federal crime, there's not much you can do about it. So our system is designed to give the DAs absolute, complete control, no accountability, absolute power. I don't like it that way. I don't think it's good for the state. Other states have a better model, and we are at risk of losing our state because we can't prosecute crime. We can't prosecute voter fraud.
So my follow-on question is that from your opinion and as an attorney, if there's a large correlation between donors and people that get work, what's your opinion on that? Is that
so it's challenging because you could always argue campaign contributions. We all run on campaign contributions, so it's expensive to run. If you can never help anybody that gave you a campaign contribution, it becomes really almost if you give, we punish you. And it's in statute that if you accept a campaign contribution, and then, I mean, it is not presumed that you've committed a crime by accepting a contribution. Otherwise, none of us can run. I mean, unless you're really super wealthy. So it's very tricky, and I think it's like every other crime. You have to prove that there was some type of quid pro, that they actually did it because of that. That's the way our criminal justice system works. It's a high standard to be convicted of a crime. I know that it's easy to accuse. I'm not saying it doesn't happen all over the place. I know it does, and I know that there are little agreements. We're going to do this. You get this. That is a crime, but you have to prove it. In our country, you're presumed innocent under the Constitution, and I'm glad it is that way. Even if we let some people off, I think you should. I think the constitutional provision presuming innocence is the right way to go, even if some people get off. Because I don't want innocent people who are just doing their jobs to go to jail when they haven't committed a crime.
so the AG has no role in?
We have none. I wish we had more of a role in criminal prosecutions, but the reality is the legislature has put all the power in the DA's hands. I even tried to get prosecution power for just human trafficking, and the DA's went and fought it. Wouldn't give it to me, even though they don't prosecute voter fraud. I mean, they don't prosecute human trafficking. For the most part, there's only a few counties that have even done any. I have specialists who are good at it, and we get referrals sometimes. But if the DA doesn't want to refer it, and they want to let people go, a lot of them do. It's just the way it is in Texas. You can do as much human trafficking as you want. If the DA is okay with it, and he may even be a part of it, for all I know. They could be a part of it, and we're stuck with it. That's the system that if we don't fix, we are in trouble.
Okay.
Here's a pre-question that doesn't count as my question.
What? I've never heard of that. Is that wait, is that in the rules?
Get AG ruling on it. It's on the same thing, real quick. I had an issue with some DAs. I spent several years talking to your office, talked to you about it one time, talked to the FBI and the Rangers and everybody. Complaint against the DA, and it turns out that the person I complained about the DA to is the DA.
That's exactly the problem.
That's still the case.
There's no accountability. I don't have a timer here.
It started.
Okay, good.
Three questions.
So, questions don't count. So, no, that's the problem with the system. they come in and say, look, I'm gonna commit a couple crimes today, I'm gonna do this, this, and this. And you'd say, well, we're gonna turn you in. Turn yourself into me, because I'm the guy that decides. What kind of system is that? Where you can be elected, as soon as you get elected, you're clear of all state crime.
Yeah, free pass.
You're free. And you can have all your buddies, hey, come on in, here, you do this, you do this, you'll never be prosecuted. I want some money from that. I'm even gonna announce a new thing publicly. We're all committing crimes. They won't do that, but they could. No one can do anything about it.
And not to stretch it out, but there was an issue about freedom of information. And the freedom of information officer was married to the person I was trying to get information on. So that just went the
I want
trash.
you to think about voter fraud there. You think Trump won by 600,000 votes. The governor's races have less of a margin. Let's just say the DAs of Travis, Bear, Dallas, Harris, El Paso, just divide it up. We each need 50,000 votes, or we each need 75,000 votes. Let's just announce this initiative to steal that many votes. They can announce the initiative, agree on how much they're going to do, and be fine. In Texas, in the legislature, it's rubber stamped. Fine.
Crazy.
We're done. Once they get a hold of this, we're done. It's easy. I could plan it. They've already planned it. It's coming. In the next couple of years, we can talk about all this other stuff. If we lose on this, we can't prosecute them. If nobody can prosecute them, they are free to do whatever they want. You guys can catch them, it won't even matter.
Sounds like our commissioners, they set their own salaries. The only thing we can do is vote them out.
Which is really what my.
Well, at least you voted out. I guess you can vote the DA.
Maybe.
You can commit as many crimes as you want.
Yeah.
Now that's-
But is he going to get voted out in Travis County? Or Harris County? Or Dallas County? No.
I'll give Dennis my time for his
My,
question.
my actual question is short. It's kind of about the same thing. I don't know if you remember Bell, California. Do you remember Bell, California?
Vail, California?
Little city, the
Is this a
council.
Eagles song?
Where?
Oh, that's Hotel California. Yeah, that's right.
The city council in this little town voted themselves $1 million salaries.
No, I do remember
Yeah,
this.
some of them ended up in jail for a short time. One of our resolutions.
If they were the DA, they wouldn't.
He gave permission, I'm sure. At our convention, our Republican convention, one of the resolutions was to ask the legislature to set up some sort of a structure that we could ask public officials to adhere to. Part of it was based on the governor's salary. You know, our commissioners make more than the governor does. They make more than almost anybody.
Those commissioners do actually.
So if we were to convince them to do that, is there any reason why the legislature couldn't formulate some sort of a
Absolutely.
structure for everybody?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I came very close when I was in the House. We actually had it all worked out. All the members, we were so mad at our county commissioners, they just voted themselves like this longevity pay. They were already getting 3 cars. They're making about $150,000, something like that. They were, they had 3 sons, everything was free. And they just voted themselves longevity pay. So the longer they were in office, they got these bonuses. We came up with this plan among just Collin County state reps. And we had to do it fast because the Texas Association of Counties would blow us up. So we were going to have a bill that bumped them down to what our salary was, $600 a month. And we were going to send it to committee. It was going to be out in one day. It's going to be over in the Senate the next day, and they were going to have it out. We had our senator tied into it too. And we had it all revved up. It was going to happen in like 2.5 days. And they were going to go from commissioners to supervisors, just Collin County, and take them from their crazy salaries because we were so mad at them. And then one of our state reps got cold feet and wouldn't go with it. But I wish we'd done it and sent a message.
Well, we're gonna work on it,
But you could definitely do it.
and it's needed.
Okay, on one of our questions, was, what is your position on the full forensic election audit? Describe what that would include. You answered, I was in favor of a full in-depth audit. Was makes me think that that was passed the way you thought. Maybe you're thinking different now? Okay.
That's just the way it was. It's related to past, but yeah, no, I actually was, you can see the interviews, there were interviews all over the place where I said, hey, I think they should be friends about it. There's no reason they shouldn't. Why are we afraid of finding out what's there? If we're wrong, what if there's no fraud? Then everybody can feel good there's no fraud. If there is fraud, then we should fix it. We audit corporations. you know why? We don't do it because there is fraud, we do it so that we can see if there's fraud. And it's also meant as a deterrent, right? So if you're gonna commit fraud, you better be really good at it, and we're gonna go find it. I don't know why we don't audit elections. They're more important, they're as important and more important than any corporate books.
For sure. Okay, shifting gears a little bit. In special purpose elections like MUDs, developers often hire men voters as basically fee was two or more to move into a trailer on site of a new development to vote on what amounts to millions of dollars in bonds for infrastructure. That in turn free the developers from the risk of that part of their investment, leaving the taxpayers on the hook in the event of a default. What can the Attorney General's office do about the apparent illegal practice of compensating voters? Because that to me seems like voter fraud.
So, yeah, we can't do it. We don't prosecute anything other than voter fraud. Even in this needs to be a legislative change because they basically authorized it. I would never move into MUD because of this practice. And I know MUD developers that do this, that create their own little boards, and then the people don't really understand that their taxes are going to be like significantly higher than they would somewhere else. So I know particular MUD developments where this is actually happening.
Across the state.
What's that?
Across the state.
Across the state. But I have made sure I never move into a MUD because I don't feel like it's representative government, and the legislature has allowed this to be set up. And you know, I get why the developers like it because it allows them to get everything paid for, and and the taxpayers are on the hook for it. I don't have a problem with taxpayers paying for the actual cost, but when they're not being properly communicated to about here's what your costs are likely to be, I have a problem with lack of disclosure. If there was disclosure and they said, look, you're going to be, if you move here, your taxes are going to be a lot higher. Here's why. And by the way, our boards are going to be picked by us. They should have to disclose all of that if they're going to do this type of practice. That would be a legislative change. There's not much I can do about it.
Yeah, okay. Well, I thought there might be, you were talking about voter fraud, and if developers are if developers are putting
But
two
the
or three voters
the
in
legislature
there.
has authorized it. They've empowered it. So it's just like the legislature empower the DAs. I am not Obama. I don't just make up my own rules. I don't change. I'm not like Biden. I try to follow the law. Here's the law we follow. I may not like what the law says, but I can't. If I believe in the Constitution, and I believe in limited government, and I believe in what powers I've been given, and that was the first thing I did in my first week. I asked them I said, hey, where's the memo on like what my power is? And they said, what are you talking about? I said, there's got to be something. I mean, how does the AG know what their power is? There's nothing here. So I made them spend months researching every statute, every bit of the Constitution, to find out what my powers were. That was my first couple of months, just making sure I knew that I was being confined by my own law. Otherwise, how can I speak to telling anybody else they should follow it?
Okay. DJ.
Moving on to illegal immigration.
Do we have that here?
It's limited,
Yeah.
from what I understand.
It happens on
Nothing to worry
occasion.
about. Yeah. So, I know there's this talk about some Title 42 or whatever, I guess it's titled the
Title
COVID stuff that
Yep.
they're gonna do away with. They're going to increase the number of people coming over. I know we've got DPS there, we've got Border Patrol, we've got, what's the other group?
Customs and immigration.
Customs and all that.
National
What
Guard,
can you do
Sheriffs.
to support them and honest to goodness, I mean, we hear about we're building this, we're doing this, but nothing happens. They're not stopping it.
So-
I mean, they're not even slowing it down.
I probably have the biggest impact on me. We're suing, and that's really all we can do. So there's a case which I think should be overturned, and I've requested the legislature challenge this case and pass something that allows them to sue us. I want to be sued by the Biden administration to go defend, because Justice Kennedy, who was a Republican appointee, Justice Roberts, and 3 liberals, when Arizona tried to defend themselves and protect themselves, it's called a case called U.S. v. Arizona. So Jan Brewer, the legislature, passes laws because the Obama administration is not enforcing them and says, okay, we'll have our own laws that match what they were supposed to do. Those judges said, no, you can't do that. it has to be the federal government. So in other words, the federal government can just abandon their responsibility and just ignore it, do just the opposite. Well, that cannot be the right law, because right now we're sitting on the border with drugs coming to crack. These people are not running from the border agents, they're running to them. The cartels make $8,000 to $12,000 per person, not evading border patrol, but doing the handoff to the Biden administration. They're in business together. They've got a tacit agreement. You get as many people possible. We'll transport them all over the country in the middle of the night, on buses, on planes, wherever. We're in business. You can transport drugs, whatever, we're helping you. And that's really what's going on. So our lawsuits are the only right now hope. And what I want to do is I need a governor, I need somebody, I need a legislator to basically do something in opposition, pass a law in opposition, and basically take over some responsibility of the federal government. Let's take it back up to the new Supreme Court and say, hey, do we really have to sit here and let people die? You're really telling us the federal government can pass a law, then not enforce it, and then say we can't protect ourselves? That cannot be the right law. So that's what I want to do. That's my hope. I can't make it happen. I need somebody else to act first, because I can't create laws.
A couple of points, and I'll get to a question. And they all, hopefully they blend together. They do in my brain. We'll see if they do in yours.
Right?
So, and this is where, and I've had this discussion with a couple of people. So in 41, we got attacked. In 1941, we got attacked. We lost about 3,000
I thought you
people.
said 41. That's like
41. Yeah. We chased the Japanese for 4 years and fought a world war over it. 9/11, we lost about 3,000 people. We fought a war in Afghanistan for over 10 years.
20.
Okay. So, and then try to nation build, but that's a whole nother story. We're losing over 3,000 people a month based on some very conservative numbers to fentanyl coming across the
It's
border.
100,000 a year.
Okay. So we fought 2 wars over losing 3,000 people. We're losing 100,000 people a year to an open border to drugs. That's my first point. I'll get to a question. Have you seen the letter that Representative Cross sent you on an opinion on? It was sent to your office on March 28th. You probably haven't got to see it yet, but it's Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution. And where I'm going with this is, what's your opinion on that? And then from a practical perspective, what can the state of Texas do? Can we militarize the border over the feds if you invoke and agree that Article 4, Section 4 is indeed being violated and we are being invaded?
Right. So just Matt Cross did this for political reasons. He's not trying to get any good answers. He could have done a lot of stuff in the legislature that he never did,
Right.
never tried to do.
Right.
But he's doing this because he's running for office, and he's playing games with me. So just so you know,
Yeah, I'm not.
He's not a good actor.
It's from Matt Krause.
He's doing that for political reasons. But the
Understood.
reality is, we are researching that. We're trying to basically. There's certain evidence. I mean, it's a new theory. There's certain evidence that we would have to have that we don't have, that we would need from law enforcement that we don't control. So the details of that, we'd like to go into court with credible arguments so that we are taken seriously when we get there. That's why I sued Obama 27 times and we won 80% of our cases. I've sued Biden. We're on offense over 25 times. It's hard to keep track of because there's always another lawsuit, but we are successful because we research our stuff. When we go to court, we may not win, but you're going to know you got a real argument. We are not making stuff up. We have real constitutional arguments. And so when you do that, you have to have evidence of whatever you have to have the backup. Well, we don't have the backup yet. We need other people to help us with that information. Because we don't create the information. So yes, we've looked at it. It's just like Arizona AG said, this is an issue, invasion, blah, blah, blah. The reality is, he didn't sue. He knows he didn't sue. You know why? Because he didn't have the evidence from his governor. He needs the evidence from his governor, from law enforcement. He needs the backup to document it. Back to the fentanyl. The problem with fentanyl is that the border agents are now busy processing people. Mm-hmm. And the problem we have with, if you militarize, I'm not even sure what you get out of it. Just think about it. These people are not running. We're catching people and we're sending them, we're not busing them out of the state. But it doesn't matter if they're turning themselves into the feds. What would we shoot the feds? I don't see how we do that. So the system is as bad as it can be because these people are running to the feds for protection. Mm-hmm. And we'd have to be in a war with the feds, our own government. And I don't know how would we be shooting each other. it's not like we're just fighting the cartels. It's not like we're just fighting these people crossing the border. I mean, they're the most innocent people across the border. The cartels are evil, and the Biden administration is evil. But the Border Patrol, they don't like what they're doing. These men and women want to serve. They want to do the right thing. I've talked to hundreds of them, and they're great people, but they're not allowed to do their job. I don't think we can't shoot them. We can't fight them. I don't know how to solve that without going to court and forcing them to follow law. And if we don't have law, we don't have a constitution. We're never. It's over. We're done.
Agreed. It's a follow-on question though, just trying to be practical. If we were to put these folks in a county jail, let's just say, and these folks that are moving either folks or drugs into the state of Texas, we would then force the federal government to take action.
Well, there's
correct?
two things. One is there's 212,000 people crossing lines.
Mhm.
We can't even put a fraction of them in jail. First.
Right.
Second of all, they don't come to us. They turn themselves into the feds. The feds take possession, and then they send them off to someplace we don't even know. So would we walk up to a border agent and start fighting them for that person? There's hundreds of thousands every month. Would we go in and fight the border agents over the hundreds of thousands? We get them and take them where? It's a mess. The federal government has put us in a terrible spot. The only thing I know to do is to sue them, hold them accountable for following federal law. The courts say, look, the president doesn't have to follow federal law anymore. The Constitution on that part doesn't matter anymore. Well, no, we don't. Then we got to figure out. Then we go back to the Declaration of Independence. And if you remember what that said, these rights that we are granted are not from the federal government. They're not from Joe Biden. They're not from the government. They're from God. And that we have a right to reform our government if the federal government is not respecting our rights that are ours. They are here to serve us. We do not serve them. So if we get to the point where the courts are saying, yeah, he's a president, he's a dictator, let's just admit it. We won't call him one, but he doesn't have to follow these federal laws. Then we know we no longer have a constitution. We are back to the Declaration of Independence, and we had better figure out what government we're going to have, because that isn't the government that we were. That's not the government that the Constitution was set up for, and that is not what the Declaration of Independence said.
I don't think we'll ever get out of this. We've got, when you talk to the ranchers, the farmers that are down there, that their crops are being destroyed, their animals are being killed, their wives and girlfriends are being attacked and raped, their homes are being ransacked. I've got one rancher friend down there that they stole his pickup truck, ran into something, killed the guy. The guy's family sued the rancher and won, and he ended up taking it to appeals court and ended up winning, but it cost him thousands of dollars to do it. But this is all of this is taking place daily down there, and there's no relief for the people that live there. Their towns are being overrun. The crime is increased, and where do we go? I mean, what do we do? I mean.
So I've been down there many, many times. In fact, I've talked to these ranchers. I've talked to people living on board. I take Maria Bartiromo with me every time I can because then she'll cover it. You're right. From a human standpoint, we're in trouble. So I go back to the beginning of our country, and I look at George Washington, and I look at every battle that he fought against the British, and how he kept losing. He kept losing. He kept losing. I don't think that many people thought they were ever going to win. It was. And, we weren't even unified in our country. There were people that were siding with the Tories and, not even not helping, but actually hurting us. So George Washington, maybe the greatest president we've ever had, maybe one of the greatest military leaders we've ever had, lost every battle until the last one, and he won. So I believe there's more to it than just human effort. I think there is a God who cares about us, and I don't know what his plan is, but I know that our job, whatever the battle is, whatever we lose on, we've lost on abortion since 1972. But guess what? We're winning on abortion right now in Texas. We've saved over 100 babies a month by fighting to keep this heartbeat bill in place, which is genius. And I was there sitting and watching these justices who wanted to overturn it, couldn't figure out how to do it because we structured it in a way that made it. They would have had to say, the U.S. government, the Solicitor General of the United States, and this woman's health center. We had two different cases on the same day. And Justice Gorsuch asked the perfect question. He said, and he asked it like 4 times. She wouldn't answer it. The Solicitor General. Have we ever, the court, ever stepped into a state and told judges they can't hear a certain type of case? Well, that was what the remedy being asked for was by the United States and by the Women's Health Center. It's the only remedy they could think of. And she wouldn't answer the question. Finally, he says, look, I've asked this like 3 or 4 times. I want to answer my question. She goes, no, it's never happened. The Supreme Court has never stepped into a state court system and said, you can't hear those cases. And you can see the sort of, the liberal judges would do it, right? The moderate judges, say Kavanaugh, Barrett, Roberts particularly, you can see their faces like, oh my gosh, if we do this, if we give them the remedy they want, we are creating a precedent that is not stoppable. That means then the Supreme Court will step into all these cases that they just don't like. And that's where we beat them. We beat them. We've been losing on abortion for how long? And we finally have a major winner in Texas. And we were the first state to do it. So I don't believe in giving up hope because ultimately we could have never anticipated that we could win this. That we could have come up with this idea. Why did we come up with it in 1973? Why did we come up with it in 1983? Why did it take? We finally got a win, a big win. And it's probably the most important thing I've ever done in my life. We've saved thousands of babies because we've been successful fighting all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, all the way to the Fifth Circuit, then back to the Texas Supreme Court, and back to the Fifth Circuit. 100% win so far. And likely to continue to be a win.
Okay.
A shorter question this time.
Well, it's so short I might have to ask two. Back on the AG opinions, are you familiar with the Sarah Gonzalez and the Dallas Police Department issue?
Sarah Gonzalez.
Well, that Beto O'Rourke town hall, and Beto's guys and Dallas PD pushed her. And then Empire, Texas got involved. And they went to Dallas PD to get the video from the body cams. And Dallas PD, from what I read, asked AG for an opinion on whether they had to get the video. So, I'm wondering a little bit if you know what your opinion was. But also, is this a stall technique, or is the government, and then, you know, related kind of to that other question I asked you, some of the biggest perpetrators of state laws are state agencies.
Yep.
So are state agencies using the need to get an opinion from you as a way to slow walk some of this stuff?
But the legislature, I do what the legislature tells me to do. They set up the system. I can't tell these, we get 30,000 opinion requests every year. Can you imagine how many, I have 52 lawyers that do this. Divide 30,000 by 52, and you can see the workload is rather large. And we haven't increased the number of lawyers, but those numbers are going up. So it's getting so hard to get these things done. I mean, what's the number? 52 to 30,000. It's a big number. That's a
600.
600 a year for each lawyer. So it's a lot of work. Yeah. So those guys have a lot to do, and their problem is they're confined by state law. Whatever the law says, even if we don't like it. I issue opinions all the time, but those type of opinions, I don't read every one of those because there's 30,000. There's no way. I do the other opinions that are asked by legislators. I read all of those, and I comment. But I often have to sign things like, I wish I didn't have to sign this thing. I don't like it. I don't like the answer. But I'm calling balls and strikes. I'm not like the Yankees and the Dodgers are playing. I'm not trying to pick sides. I can't pick sides. I may really like the Yankees and hate the Dodgers. And I may have to call a strike on the Yankees like 4 times in a row and call a guy out. That is my job. Call balls and strikes as we can. You know, we're not perfect, but we're trying to legitimately, and if we make a mistake, try to come back and fix it. Because when you got 30,000 opinions that you got to get done in a year, I'm guessing we don't do it perfectly. I'm guessing there's some of them that are not right. And you probably, if you work really hard, find a few that we screwed up. But the reality is we're trying to follow the law. That's my only directive to my team. Don't make it political, make it follow the law. And if the legislature has a different opinion about the process, they need to fix it. I can't fix what their job is. That's their constitutional role. And what I tell my team is, if we're doing that, then we're no different than Biden. Because he doesn't care about the separation of powers. I do, because I care about the Constitution.
How long do they have to get that opinion back?
My opinion is we have 180 days. Those are, I don't know all the time. There's different timelines. It's like 30 days, and I'd have to go, because I don't deal with those everywhere, there's too many of them. So I deal with the other opinions where we get 5 or 6 a month, and I read all those, and I make sure that I'm happy with them. And I know we don't get them all right, but we are trying to get them right.
Do you get a
But
lot
I've had them
of,
rewrite opinions that I've read, I've gone, this is not right.
do you get a lot of them on public information?
But those are all public information. Those 30,000 are all public information, asking for our opinion. So,
Your time is
A
good.
couple minutes.
Okay, wait. I call it. It seems to me that the United States government is working with the cartels to do human trafficking and to do drug trafficking into the country. What kind of lawsuit is it going to take to stop this?
so you're one of the few people that says it the way I do on TV. I say it exactly like that. We have a federal government, Biden administration, basically they have a contract with the cartels. Cartels bring the drugs, cartels bring the people, human trafficking, sex trafficking, whatever. The Biden administration's deal is you bring them to the border, and please bring there's no limit. As many as you want. No, we don't do background checks. We don't do health care checks. We don't make you get a vaccine. Now, if you're an American citizen, you ain't coming across the border. You got COVID. You're going to get tested. If you're illegal, we don't care. There's no limit. Terrorists, no limit, no limit, no limit. This tells you that he is betraying the American people, that he doesn't care about the American people. Not only does he not care, he hates them. You wouldn't do this if you loved your neighbor, because you're harming greatly. Americans are dying. COVID deaths went up on the border for Boreas 250%. We had a higher death rate, 250% higher, because they died from COVID. That was his fault. Fentanyl deaths up 30%. Those are his fault. Other crimes, his fault. He knows it. It's a deal with the devil, right? He's okay with all these deaths. The only thing I know we can do is do exactly what I talked about, is go fight them the way the Constitution says. And if the Constitution, we finally realize, if we realize that the Constitution is not, if our rights are being violated, and the government is no longer, if we become Germany, if we become Russia, if what the Attorney General of the United States threatened, which is to investigate all parents with the FBI if they dare to speak at school board meetings, that's a violation of the First Amendment, and if they get away with that, we don't have a Constitution, we need to reform our government. That is the only thing we can do. And we have a right to do it.
Okay, one of your first things that you did when you were elected as Attorney General.
Of course, I have to go back that far. I don't remember what I did first. I know I asked for that memo. That was the first thing I did.
Was the formation of a special unit dedicated to combating human trafficking in Texas.
I do remember that.
And then tell us a little bit about that, and then the outcome of it, and also how you got Backpage.com, the largest online sex trafficking.
Sure. So the reason that I started that is I had been in the Senate, and I sat in front of a committee where Letitia Van, who's a Democrat, was trying to pass a bill related to human trafficking. And I heard all these horrific stories, and had $3, and so I was thinking, man, this is horrible. I didn't even know anything about human trafficking. This has been 10 years ago. So I went, while the hearing was going, I went to her and I said, do you have Republicans help? She goes, no. I said, you got mine. And then, so I helped her pass the bill. And then I told myself, if I ever have a chance to do more, I'm going to do more. So as soon as I got in office, it took me a year to build the team. I had to find lawyers. I didn't have any money for it. I had to figure out how to make it work. I was new to the AG's office. And I put it together, and then the first real target was Backpage. We figured out they were the largest, we thought the largest in the world. We thought, let's just start at the top. Let's send a message. We're here, come in. And so we worked with the feds, we worked with California, believe it or not. And I remember the day we took them down. They're out of business, and now, in the building that they were in, is a group, I'm trying to remember the name, they're a charity. And they go rescue people from human trafficking. They're like commando guys. That's what they do. It's called the Deliver Fund. That's the group. So to me, it's like one of the most exciting things. We replace the bad guys with the good guys. And the biggest challenge I have is that I try to get authority from the legislature, and I got it through the Senate 28-3, and the DAs went over and fought in the House and stopped me. And their basic position is, look, I said, look, you guys can have first right of refusal. You can have any case you want. But we're only like 18 counties are prosecuting, and we are very good. We have experts in this. We're the best. Let me go prosecute the ones you don't do. We'll give you 60 days. If you don't want it, then you get to take it. And we can prosecute a lot more. We can do more multi-counties. Ones that they don't like to take is multi-county. And the DAs fought it. And they said it's better to let these human traffickers go than give up our authority. We'll trade. I'm not kidding. We'll trade. And the Republican DAs were behind this too. They were behind blocking it. They won't say it like that, but that's the reality. We're letting human traffickers go. And they made the decision, instead of working with me, we could actually work together. Now I have to wait for them to refer it to me. And we just don't get the referrals that we could do on our own. So we are saying to the human traffickers, why don't we do business in Texas? The DAs are good with it. We're promoting it actually. And it angers me that they stop me from prosecuting. What's the downside? Oh, you're impinging on our authority. No, I'm not. I gave you first right of refusal. You can do whatever case you want. I want you to do as many cases as you can do. I just want the overflow. There are a lot. There are thousands and thousands of women that are suffering and have not gotten justice. And the DAs say, oh no, it's not.
So back to the Court of Criminal Appeals, sometimes I call them the Criminal Court of Appeals. Irresponsible decision to place power and take that away from you, the Attorney General, into the DA's hands. Where does that stand? Have you appealed that?
Can't appeal, and they're the fellow appeal. They know that. That's why I think it's so genius. That's why I think Soros is behind it. I filed a motion to rehear months ago, and they have not responded. I don't think they're going to, because they know that I've gotten the word out. My own personal lawyers told me not to bring it up because he said they would come after me. And I said, I don't care if they come after me, because if we lose this, we lose the state, we lose the country. And I said, I'm not going to shut up. I'm going to talk about it every chance I get, and I don't care if they come after me.
So you can't appeal that to the Fifth Circuit?
Nowhere to do it, and they know that. And George Soros knows it. It was genius. When I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, this was genius. Pure evil, but genius. Probably the two things I'm most angry about in my job is human trafficking, that I can't prosecute that, and the fact that they did this. And we're so distracted by 1,000 other problems that we aren't paying attention. I know every chance I get talking about it, every speech I give, I talk about it. I just can't, it's hard to explain, but it takes 5 minutes to explain who they are and what they did. And people lose track of what I'm talking about.
So there was an article in the Austin American Statesman, January 14, 2002.
I don't read that anymore. You know what I say? If you want to read good fiction, you can get better fiction.
Is that right? Okay. So they talk about Travis County District Attorney has determined that you violated Texas Open Records law by not turning over his communications from January 2021 when he appeared at a pro-Trump rally that preceded the attack on the Capitol. Okay, we know that's where that is. DA gave you 4 days to remedy the issue or face a lawsuit. And Jose Garza,
He's a Soros guy.
okay, is Democrat.
Not just a Democrat, he replaced the DA, Margaret Moore, who would prosecute. She actually was a Democrat. She came from the agent's office, so she was a prosecutor. Soros didn't like her when she was prosecuting, so he put her in, this guy in, to prosecute Republicans.
So that's all campaign finance reports that you can file with that, or just bag money?
This?
Basically?
No,
for Garza.
no, yeah, funding.
Okay.
He did the same thing in San Antonio. He got rid of a pretty decent Democrat who was prosecuting human trafficking, and he was.
They're good now. So what they came out currently facing the fiercest scrutiny of his decades-long career. Let's say several GOP primary challengers down the line. 3 state criminal indictments and a pending FBI bribery investigation. Can you please tell us where those stand? Is that factual, and where those stand?
So the first one was the DA. Now they wanted all my text messages that are not their personal, not state related. Anyway, I paid my own way there. I didn't go there as on any state dollars. I paid for my own hotel. I was actually on a vacation. I left early. Spent a fair bit of money for me and my wife there. So it has nothing to do with state, and I didn't have any text messages. That's just all BS from the Austin legislature. All of that's false. There's not a shred of truth. The indictments happened to me when I first got into office. I had those indictments waiting for 3 years. Guess where they are? Guess where they are? I got moved from Collin County to Harris. Why did they move me? They had no jurisdiction to do it, no reason to do it, no legal right to do it. I've been fighting that movement to Harris County. Why did they want me in Harris County? Because it's a Democratic county. I've tried to get back to Collin County, and every Democratic judge has ruled in my favor. I won at trial court. Court of Appeals said, no, let's have another judge do this. I won there. Then it goes to the Court of Appeals. I won there. All Democrats. I get to the Court of Criminal Appeals, and they stay it. Republican Court of Criminal Appeals. Why do they stay it? I always wonder, why do all the Democrats know that what they did to me was wrong? Even the Democrats. Why did the Court of Criminal Appeals stay it? Now I know. Because they wanted me to shut up about this other stuff. They knew that they were going to do what they were going to do. They wanted me to shut up about what was going to happen. So my lawyer said, hey, don't talk about this Court of Criminal Appeals decision because they can mess up your life. I said, let them mess my life up. Tell them to rule the wrong way in violation of state law. So that's that.
And then there was a third one.
The FBI investigation. Okay, so I was investigating the FBI and the Department of Justice for corruption. And I got a referral from Travis County DA before they switched DAs. There was a referral. This is the only way I can do any criminal matter. I have no authority to investigate. I have no authority to prosecute. We get referrals, and that's when our office goes into place. That's why I'm frustrated with human trafficking. We don't get enough referrals. So this referral came in, and my office, I believe, had been infiltrated by the FBI. They didn't want me to investigate this. And so they turned the tables on me and started investigating me. They've been doing it for a year and a half. Got all my medical records. I've got every phone call I've ever made. Anybody I've ever talked to, they've gone back to my high school, my college, anybody they can find. Why? Because I dared to investigate the Department of Justice. I dared to investigate the FBI. No one would do it. Everybody told me not to. They said I should be afraid. They will destroy me. And I said, if I'm afraid, then we have lost. I should just retire. Because if I'm backing down, I don't care what they do to me. And guess what? But my guys were afraid. They didn't tell me. And they work with the FBI. They turn the tables on me. I've been investigated for a year and a half. They've got nothing. They do want me in jail because I'm screwing up the agenda for the Biden administration. And I dare hold organized crime, the FBI, accountable. And let me just tell you, I think they are as corrupt as they come. I think under Obama, the CIA, the FBI have all become criminal organizations. They don't follow any laws. They don't follow the Constitution. What I was investigating was whether they had rightly searched a Texan's home, a Texan's office. They never gave a search warrant until after the fact. That's a violation of the Constitution. And then they gave the search warrant after the fact, and they altered the document. That's a violation of state law. During the middle of the search, when they didn't find what they thought they were going to find, they altered the document. We know they did that. We don't know how they altered it. That was the investigation. Did they violate state law? Guess what? No one wanted to know the answer to that question. And so they buried me and they buried it. But, so my crime is daring to take the FBI on. And it's cost me a lot. It's cost me a lot of money personally to defend myself. It's cost me part of my reputation. I have no regrets. I do it again. They may put me in jail someday for doing it. But I will not back down to the FBI, and I told my team that, and that's what got me in trouble about that when those dang guys that left, is that they were afraid of the FBI, and they didn't want to fight them. I did not. I didn't back down, and I won't back down. But like I can tell you, when you're in this office and you do the right thing, there are people that want you out. There are people that want you dead. And this is a position that can affect strategically the course of the nation. And let me just say, not only is it Democrats, not only is it like the Biden administration that I'm screwing up their record, I'm wreaking havoc on their Department of Justice, but it's a lot of establishment Republicans that don't like that either.
True that. We see that.
Yeah, no doubt.
We see that
I'm fighting the
well.
media, I'm fighting the Democrats, I'm fighting the Republicans.
We fight that.
I represent the people.
Appreciate that. If you'd like, take up 5 minutes now, and we're halfway.
Look, we're going to fight for literally the survival of our country. And I believe that there's hope. Ever since Trump lost, and I had a great relationship with Donald Trump, he did more great things for this country than any president I've known in 4 years. I was very close to him. He helped me with a lot of stuff. He switched sides on a lot of stuff that I asked him about. I mean, I had a very close relationship to him. And I think that America respected him because he's not a perfect person, but I don't know anybody who is. But what he did was he took care of the American people. He looked out the American people first. And I remember sitting in a limo with him alone, riding with him one day, and I said, hey, how do you put up with this crap that you have to deal with everyday people that assault you? Going after your family. Without even thinking, he just said, I don't give up. And I thought, he really just is doing this because he believes. And we lost him. I think voter fraud, absolutely 100%. I know it happened because it happened in our state. We stopped it. And so the hope that we had was taken away by a guy that's betraying the country, that hates the country, that's trying to destroy the Constitution. And my goal is to give people hope, not just in Texas, but all the country. Somebody will go out and fight for them. And hopefully give courage to people, parents, other elected officials. I mean, it's me leading these lawsuits and pulling these other states into doing this because no one wants to do it alone. No one wants to be the first. They want me to be the first. So I am. That's why I took on the FBI. Because I thought, nobody's going to do this except me. No one will do this. So they can just violate any law they want. They can just ignore the Constitution, the Fourth Amendment. I remember my own guy who's in charge of the criminal section. He used to work at the Department of Justice. I said, well, doesn't it matter that they didn't issue a search warrant? This is a constitutional right. It's kind of, a little thing. It's a constitutional right that you can't be searched and seized without having a warrant either given to you or left at your place. He goes, well, they were close enough. They gave it to him later. I said, Mark, close enough to a constitutional right? I said, this stuff matters. I said, it's not getting it close that matters. It is getting it right. If you're violating people's constitutional rights, you should be held accountable. It should be stopped. And if you're not, I don't care if you're the federal government, I don't care if you're the FBI, you have to be held accountable. And you're telling me, it doesn't matter. And I said, I don't agree with that.
Not close enough.
Did you fire him?
But
Did you fire him?
he's fired. But he filed a lawsuit and said he was a whistleblower. So now I'm having to defend that. It's just, you fight these guys and it's so disappointing that this guy was a federal prosecutor. And I'm literally thinking about him, like, I'm not a federal prosecutor. I made him read the statute to me. He read the statute. He read the statute to me. And I said, Mark, it's pretty simple, isn't it? They're supposed to, they have to give it to you when they search you. Or, if you're not there, leave it. Did they do that? He goes, well, no. I said, then what are we fighting over here? I just think they're close enough. I said, close enough to what? What you think is close enough? I said, what about the law? This is not just a little thing. This is the U.S. Constitution. If we don't defend that, I don't know why we're here. And that's what got me in trouble. I am defending the Constitution. And they said, well, this guy that this happened to, he's a developer, he's a bad guy. I said, oh, really? I said, how do you know? And I said, well, why do you care? I don't care if they're good or bad. What I care about is, are their rights being protected? I said, if we start making decisions about who the Constitution is for, and you and I get to decide, oh, well, Pat's good, Larry's bad. Let's protect her, not him. Is that a Constitution? Is that my job? It's not my job. My job is to defend Texas no matter what.
All right, well, good deal.
All right.